Is the Wells Report, which will return in 2 minutes. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. Good morning, I'm John David Wells. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. Lots of news today. And that is exactly what we do. We report the news honestly and fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We point out both. In short, we de-propagandize the mainstream media. We also make commentary. That is not news. Commentary is opinion, both yours and mine, and so we debate. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. You can also find us on chat. We are on YouTube, Facebook, X, Twitch, Rumble, Patreon, and a host of others that we simply don't recognize. Actually, you can find an audio podcast on this on Spreaker and other places around the universe. We're a busy show and we do lots of stuff, and you can find us just about everywhere. Make sure that you keep the Wells Report on your mind, and if you need news, this is the place to come. Speaking of which, time now for the front page. This is news while we were sleeping, and since the last show, the Wells Report. Let's get busy. Israel, Hamas still leading the news. Here are some updates. From Fox News, President Biden's administration has urged Israel to delay its ground invasion of the Gaza Strip following Hamas's unprecedented October 7th assault. Administration officials say they recommended the delay in hopes to buy time for further hostage negotiations. This in a report from the New York Times. The officials reportedly said no ultimatums were made. However, the U.S. would still fully support Israel if they were to move forward with a ground invasion. But the U.S. is poised to get involved in the Israel-Hamas war should the conflict escalate into a regional war, intentionally targeting American personnel, according to senior officials. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said yesterday the U.S. expects Iranian proxies to seek opportunities to escalate the Israeli-Hamas war, and asserted the Biden administration is prepared to respond accordingly if American civilians or armed forces become targets. Quote, "This is not what we want, not what we're looking for. We don't want escalation," according to the Secretary of State. "We don't want to see our forces or our personnel come under fire. But if that happens, we are ready," unquote. Secretary Austin, the defense secretary, also said, quote, "What we're seeing is a prospect of a significant escalation of attacks on our troops and our people throughout the region. We're going to do what's necessary to make sure our troops are in the position and that they were protected and have the ability to respond." He affirmed that the U.S. has the right to defend itself and said, "We will not hesitate to take appropriate action." Secretary Austin also said the U.S. would continue to increase its presence in the region to send another message to those who would seek to widen this conflict. In fact, United States Marines are moving toward the conflict. This from CNN. A U.S. Marine Rapid Response Force is headed to the waters off the coast of Israel, and the Pentagon is preparing American troops for a potential deployment into the country, escalating the U.S.'s show of force in the region as it works to prevent the conflict between Israel and Hamas from widening any further. Two defense officials familiar with the planning said the Rapid Response Force, consisting of 2,000 Marines and sailors, is being sent. It will join a growing number of U.S. warships and forces converging on Israel as the U.S. seeks to send a message of deterrence to Iran and the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah. Sunday evening, U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin ordered that roughly 2,000 troops prepare for a potential deployment to Israel to help with tasks like medical and logistical support, according to multiple defense officials. Taken together, the moves are aimed at forestalling a wider regional war, said officials, but they also risk deepening the U.S. involvement in a conflict in which the Biden administration is trying to avoid direct military action. Internationally, China has deployed 6 warships to the Middle East. This from the U.S. Express. China has deployed 6 warships to the Middle East as the conflict between Israel and Hamas escalates, according to reports. The 44th Naval Escort Task Force from the People's Liberation Army Navy in the Eastern Theater there has been involved in routine operations in the region and spent several days in Oman last week. The Chinese warships left Muscat for an unspecified location over the weekend after participating in an exercise with the Omani Navy. The task force includes the Zibo, a guided missile destroyer, the frigate Jingzhou, and the supply ship Qiandohu, all of which will be stationed in the Middle East as Israel prepares for a ground invasion of Gaza. In news of the states, the United States, in fact, New Hampshire, voters are split on increasing aid for Israel. This from Fox News. Voters in Manchester, New Hampshire, are split in support of the U.S. sending humanitarian aid overseas to Israel. A recent Fox News survey found voters strongly side with Israel in the recent attacks, but some residents in New Hampshire say the U.S. should stay out of the conflict and not send money overseas. Patrick, who is a bar and restaurant owner in Manchester, told Fox News the U.S. government should focus on spending money on issues at home. Another resident, Mary, agreed the U.S. should wait before sending money to Israel. Quote, I think we have to just wait it out a little bit, she said. Instead of sending money to every country, we have problems right here on our border. I think we should really rectify that first, unquote. We have a lot of issues here that need to be addressed on our own ground as opposed to just sending money to other foreign countries, said another individual. Other residents who do support sending aid overseas with no constraints, one said the U.S. has an obligation to the world and or as a world power to help other countries. Out of Texas, a moving corporation and consulting firm says that it is a new world and Texas is the center of it. The Lone Star State is expected to become the most populous state in the U.S. by 2100, with a whopping 96 million residents, this according to a new study. In 77 years, New York, Chicago, and L.A. will be replaced by Texas cities as the largest in the nation, a study from MoveBuddha.com claims. Based on current migration trends, MoveBuddha predicts that by 2100, major Texas cities will replace New York City, L.A., and Chicago as the country's most populous cities. The Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, currently the 4th largest in the nation, is expected to swell to a population of nearly 34 million by the turn of the 22nd century, replacing New York City as the biggest city in America. Houston will rise from 7.2 million to 31.3 million people. Austin will see its population grow tenfold from the current 2.3 million to almost 23 million, according to the forecasts. And then there's Georgia. Susan Hodgson, things couldn't get much worse. Her house was demolished accidentally. Last month, Hodgson came back from her longtime, or to find her longtime Atlanta family property, a pile of rubble, this according to the Associated Press. I'm furious, said Hodgson. I keep waking up thinking, is this a joke or something? I'm in shock. Hodgson received a call from a neighbor while she was away asking whether she had hired somebody to demolish her home. Hodgson told the neighbor she hadn't hired anybody to tear down the home. The neighbor went over to confront the worker, who replied harshly, "Shut up and mind your own business," unquote. Hodgson then sent a family member over to speak with the worker, who realized, well, he was at the wrong address. The family member said, "I want to see a permit or something." The guy pulled it out and says, "Oh, I'm at the wrong address." He then packed up everything and left. But the house is still gone. Hodgson told Fox 5, Georgia, that You Call It, We Haul It, the name of the company responsible, has not made contact with her. USA Today was unable to reach the company. In a statement to Fox 5, the company said it was investigating. Business. It looks like Chevron has agreed to acquire Hess for $53 billion. Here's the news from Fox Business. Chevron Corporation announced today that it had reached an agreement to acquire competitor Hess Corporation in an all-stock deal valued at $53 billion. The energy company said the acquisition upgrades and diversifies Chevron's already advantaged portfolio. Hess's Bakken assets add another leading U.S. shale position to Chevron's DJ and Permian Basin operations and further strengthen Permian Basin operations and further strengthen domestic energy security, said Chevron in a statement. The combined company is expected to grow production and free cash flow faster and for longer than Chevron's current 5-year guidance. Chevron says the deal, which is expected to close in the first half of next year, has been unanimously approved by both companies' board of directors, and it is to acquire all of the outstanding shares of Hess in an all-stock transaction valued at $53 billion or $171 per share, based on Chevron's closing price, October 20th, 2023. News from the Supreme Court of the United States. This from USA Today. The world was more than a year into the pandemic when the Food and Drug Administration became alarmed about reports of Americans treating COVID-19 with an anti-parasitic drug often used for horses and cows. Eager to head off an untested and potentially dangerous fad treatment, they called it, the agency posted a warning on its website noting that the drug ivermectin was not approved for COVID-19 and that ingesting doses of the drug frequently given to farm animals had already left multiple people in the hospital. Quote, "You are not a horse. You are not a cow." This according to the FDA posting on social media in mid-2021 as COVID-19 vaccines were already widely available in the U.S. The quote was, and this is the exact quote, "Seriously, y'all, stop it," unquote. Those warnings are now the subject of a pending lawsuit by 3 doctors who claim the FDA overstepped its authority by weighing in with medical advice they say should have been left to physicians. The ivermectin suit is one of several working through federal courts challenging the FDA's power to make decisions or dispense information. Some of the suits, including a challenge to FDA approval of the abortion drug mifepristone, involve a sheen of politics, with conservative groups lining up to challenge the federal government's power. At an earlier stage of the abortion bill case, the FDA drew the support of 253 members of Congress, all of them Democrats. The doctors challenging the drug, ivermectin, secured support from 147 lawmakers, all Republicans. Public health advocates worry the litigation could undercut the FDA's authority broadly. The agency faced setbacks with several of the challenges, including one involving ivermectin at the New Orleans-based 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, some of the most conservative appeals courts in the nation. The 5th Circuit also blocked access to mifepristone earlier this year, a decision that was later put on hold by the Supreme Court of the United States. Speaking of which, is third time the charm for the speaker's race. This according to The Hill. House Republicans will embark on their third attempt to pick a speaker this week, heading back to square one as they huddle to pick a nominee for the top spot and hope that their new candidate can muster enough support to win the gavel on the floor. The conference reset comes after a majority of members voted to drop House Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan as their nominee after he failed to win the speakership on 3 ballots and bled support on each conservative vote, or consecutive vote. Before that, Majority Leader Steve Scalise withdrew his name from the race as Jordan backers said they would not support him on the floor. Now, 9 Republicans are vying for the top spot, but it remains unclear if any of the candidates will be able to drum up votes to secure the gavel on the House floor. We will see. We'll be watching that situation, and we'll report on it immediately here on the Wells Report. And that is today's front page. Yeah, there's a lot of news. By the way, that ivermectin suit that's headed toward the Supreme Court, yeah, the FDA is going to have a real problem with that. Because as you know, if you watch the Wells Report during that time, the last few years, we jumped all over the story, COVID-19. And the CDC, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention in Atlanta, had ivermectin as a treatment on their website for COVID-19. The physicians on that case are absolutely correct. This is going to go down hard and fast. And the Supreme Court has a chance to do what they've done with the EPA and other agencies, which is you have power, but not that much. And the FDA, certainly not a bunch of doctors. They are a bunch of politicians, and hopefully a comeuppance is on the way. This is the Wells Report. Back with more in a moment.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
Hey, good morning. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Like I said, we have ways for you to contact this broadcast in real time, and we certainly do hope that you do so. You can find us on chat at Facebook, YouTube, X, Twitch, Facebook. I already said Facebook. Patreon and Rumble. Let's see, what do we got here? Let's see. Mike says, hello, happy Monday. Eddie says, arm our citizens in the U.S. Isn't that fascinating? Isn't that fascinating? We've seen a couple of wars in the world, one in Ukraine and one in Israel. Israel is relaxing its firearms policies and laws for their own citizens based on this Hamas attack. It was just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time. Yamamoto is quoted as saying, the admiral for the Second World War for the Empire of Japan is quoted as saying that invading the United States would be absolutely impossible because there would be a gun behind every blade of grass. And I don't have any idea how this didn't become a part of life in Israel. The IDF, the reservists, all have weapons at home. And why the gentry, the regular citizenry, wouldn't have weapons available to themselves to forestall this exact scenario, I really don't have any idea. But it is a lesson for all of us. It's a lesson for all of us. Something I've been talking about here on the Wells Report for a very, very long time. And that is this. Either you have a weapon or two, I suggest a pistol, a rifle, and a shotgun. You either have a few weapons around the house, or you have a comprehensive first aid kit. One of those two things has to be in your possession, and you have to be an expert on the use of either or both. And Israel is finally waking up to that. 1,000 Hamas terrorists invaded Israel, killing more than 1,400 Israelis, including children, Holocaust survivors, took 200 hostages, all war crimes. All these people should be taken to The Hague or Nuremberg, tried, and if they're found guilty, hung. Just like that. Yeah, the World War II tribunals in Nuremberg. Yeah, that's what should happen with these guys. And until civilization decides to start treating these ideologically based organizations as nation states, and thus responsible for the Geneva Conventions, responsible for the world laws of war, etc., we're going to keep seeing this. You know, Israel's going through the Gaza Strip right this very moment, collecting all these people, if you want to call them people, and they will be tried, and whatever happens to them, happens to them. But this should be something the entire world is doing. Because if we don't do this, we're going to see Al-Qaeda's, and we're going to see ISIS's, and we're going to see Hamas's and Hezbollah's. Because these nation states can come up with these, essentially, these mercenaries, proxy armies, to go to war with whatever country they feel like, and be absent from the sanctions of international law. Iran is simply out to lunch here. And if they're not careful, Israel's going to eat that lunch. I'm serious. And the entire world needs to look at Iran and say, stop. Stop. That being said, the United States is very much interested in supporting Israel. 7 in 10 Americans, 81% of Republicans, 74% of Democrats support providing aid to Israel. 41% say it would be a good idea to send Israel weapons if needed. This according to the Economist YouGov polling that was released last week. Americans clearly recognize Israel has a duty to protect its citizens, rescue hostages, destroy the threat posed by Hamas. Asked for opinions on Israel's response to the Hamas attack, a plurality, 35% of registered voters said Israel's retaliation has been about right. 1/4 said not harsh enough. I'm afraid I'm in that camp. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Stick around. We're going to have more news as we get through this Monday morning. Lots to discuss. And we are going to get back to it in just a couple of moments on the Wells Report.
nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost. How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning-fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. John David Wells at your service. Bringing you the news, just like this, out of the war zone, Israel and Hamas. The son of a Hamas founder says the mainstream media is afraid to label their group, the Hamas group, it's not his, by the way, a genocidal religious movement. This guy's interesting. He is the son of somebody who set up Hamas. His father set up Hamas, and he became a Christian and said, you know what, I'm having nothing to do with this. He is one of the most vocal critics of Hamas, coming from the Gaza Strip and people involved in this conflict. So let me give you this. These are live updates from Fox News. This, by the way, was from 1 hour ago. The son of a Hamas founder said Hamas is even more dangerous than ISIS. He said that today, claiming the mainstream media is afraid to call it a genocidal religious movement for fear of igniting a full-on religious war. It's their own comparison to say that Hamas and ISIS is because I think Hamas is a lot more dangerous, said Mossab Hassan Youssef on Fox and Friends earlier today. Look at the division and the global confusion because of Hamas. They brought us to our knees somehow by their brutality and their barbarism. Brutality is even understanding Hamas's acts. Hamas is a religious movement. They are raging religious movement against Israel. The mainstream media cannot say this because they're afraid to ignite a religious war. And what I say is, it already is a religious war. They want to annihilate the Jewish people because they are Jewish people, because they are a Jewish state. Youssef, who renounced the terror group, became an informant for Israel's internal security service Shin Bet in the 1990s, said Hamas couldn't be negotiated with because it wasn't a national or political movement. Fox News has gone to a village that was brutalized by Hamas terrorists. Trey Yingst is a correspondent there. He has been doing superb work ever since the outset of this attack. He went to an Israeli village that was brutalized on the October 7th attack. Footage from the scene showed blood-stained floors, bullet holes, broken shelter doors, evidence of Hamas crimes during the surprise attack. 17 days ago, Yingst said that residents of some of the homes were executed at point-blank range by Hamas terrorists. Others were locked in their houses and burned. A journalist who is also working for Fox, reacting with horror after Israel shares footage of the October 7th Hamas assault. The Israeli government shared footage of the Hamas October 7th terror attack with roughly 100 journalists on Monday, prompting horrific descriptions on social media. Israel has not chosen to release the footage publicly out of respect for the families of the victims. Journalists describe horrific scenes of brutality and violence. Footage reportedly showed Hamas terrorists murder a father in front of his two sons in one instance. Another showed a militant bragging to his mother about having killed 10 Jews, having called her on the phone of a dead victim. Israel's footage comes as the military is poised for a ground invasion of Gaza. Israeli defense forces have remained mustered on the Gaza border for more than a week. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed to destroy Hamas, but has offered no timeline for when the invasion would begin. One of the Fox News journalists said he could not tell you what was on the tape because it was simply too horrific. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez insisted she was not defending Hamas as she accused Israel of committing war crimes. This came from news yesterday. Ocasio-Cortez appeared on MSNBC's The Mehdi Hassan Show to defend her position of calling for a ceasefire following Hamas's attack against Israel October 7th. When asked whether Israel has a right to defend itself, she argued that war crimes are not the appropriate response. She began, quote, "I think one of the things that's important to recognize about this situation is the asymmetry of what's going on as well as the collective punishment of what is happening to the Palestinian people at the moment. Hamas is absolutely engaged in horrific attacks. Every single day there are more details that are released about what occurred on October 7th that shocks the human consciousness and shocks our conscience, our collective conscience. However, we do know as well that war crimes do not constitute and are not an appropriate response for other war crimes. It is unacceptable to think that 1,700 Palestinian children alone, their deaths will somehow make up to justify the violence of what we saw on October 7th, unquote. If you stand up for Hamas at any level, you are Hamas. The squad has covered itself in shame because they have come out on the side of Palestine on this. 1,700 Palestinian children? Yeah, that's horrible. It's absolutely terrible. And is absolutely under the ledger of Hamas, not Israel. 1,000 Hamas terrorists poured out of the Gaza Strip and slaughtered nearly 1,500 Israelis. When you do that, a real nation is going to come into your neighborhood and stomp you into the dirt. They're not going to try to kill your kids. You have to contrast that with Hamas terrorists actually trying to kill Israeli kids. But anyway, let's move forward. They're not going to try to kill Palestinian kids, but they're going to die. Why? Because the government of the parents of those children decided to go and slaughter Israelis because they were Jewish. This is the price you pay for electing the wrong government. I feel terribly for the Palestinian people that are not standing for Hamas, but which ones are which? If they're still there, it seems like they stand for Hamas, and this is the problem with standing with an ideology. If you indeed stand with an ideology, if you're in contact with them, it's not collective punishment. You are a war fighter. Just because you're not in a uniform and you're not carrying an issued weapon and you don't have rules of engagement or all the other things that these terrorists decide to just throw away in favor of being able to show up out of their enclaves and start killing people with knives and whatever happens to be handy, doesn't mean that you're not supporting those people. If you're supporting those people, you are not innocent Palestinians. You are Palestinian war fighters. If you had indeed decided to take up Israel's offer, 4 different offers, actually the first one wasn't Israel, but the last 3 were, then you could petition in the United Nations and probably find a sympathetic ear. But then again, you'd have to actually account for all the money coming into your government's hands, very carefully tucked into Swiss bank accounts for when this all comes crashing down, which is exactly what they're doing, by the way. And all we have to do is sit here and watch and try to make heads or tails out of it. Well, I've got to tell you something. If it's impossible to find heads or tails, it's because it's illegal. If it is too confusing to understand, it's because laws are being broken. Civilization has an obligation to enforce those laws. And if civilization doesn't enforce their own laws, it's not a civilization. I agree with this son of a Hamas founder who says the media is afraid to call Hezbollah, Hamas, genocidal terror organizations because they're afraid it would become a religious war. It is a religious war already. And it's time to start fighting it. And I'm not just talking about the United States. I'm not talking about Pax Americana. I'm not talking about American hegemony. I'm talking about the civilized nations of the world demanding that civilized laws, even civilized laws governing warfare, are met and respected and followed. The reason these people are terrorists is because they don't follow those laws. And so, I have a great deal of sympathy in my heart for these children that have lost their lives because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time because their parents voted for the wrong government. But just as that happens in the Gaza Strip, it can happen here. Electing the correct government, the right people, based on the contents of your character and your conscience, is one of the reasons why the United States stands apart from this and watches all of this. Although we have countless Palestinians, countless Jews, all living in this country in peace, more or less. And the reason that is because we simply will not have the kind of violence that occurs elsewhere. We won't have it. So, President Herzog had some. This is the Israeli president, by the way. I didn't say Israeli President Herzog, but I do tell you that Herzog did have some things to say regarding Hamas, and you should see what those are. So here we go.
Material which was found on the body of one of those sadistic villains. It's Al-Qaeda material, official Al-Qaeda material. We're dealing with ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and Hamas. This is what we're dealing with. And in this material, there were instructions how to produce chemical weapons. It speaks about arson, and it speaks about various chemicals that come out and produce chemical weapons. Simple as that.
The severing of medical supplies and electricity is having an incredibly profound effect on the...
But it's not us severing.
But it's having a very profound effect on the ability for those hospitals to operate.
But that's part of the distorted information. It was Hamas missiles which broke down the electricity infrastructure in Gaza. Nothing to do with us. Water, we supply only 7% of the water. It's fuel? Hamas operation. There is fuel for the humanitarian need. It's under UNRWA. We are following very closely the humanitarian situation on the hour. Most of Gaza is functioning. There are areas that are under battle. This is a real tragedy, but how does the world want... How does the world cope?
We can't say Gaza's functioning.
How does the world cope? First of all, a lot of distorted information comes out of Gaza.
No, but we do have a team on the ground who we do trust, and we can't say that Gaza is a functioning territory.
But the problem is, of course, that part of the infrastructure and part of the aid is hijacked by Hamas. That's the issue. Guys, it's very easy to blame Israel. Let's just remember where we were, what happened, and how do we have the right to defend ourselves when a missile that flies 250 kilometers straight into Israel comes from people's living room. That's the situation we're faced with. No other nation is faced with that. And had any nation been faced with that, believe me, they would have attacked the same.
That is absolutely true. Herzog is completely correct. Israel did nothing to start this. Israel did nothing to stop this. Israel has done everything they possibly could to not kill whatever innocent civilians are in that particular part of land, the Gaza Strip. I don't believe there are any innocent civilians there. I don't believe it because they follow an ideology, one that they chose, and they chose to live under. That pretty much takes it for me. That is just about that for me. And I have to be completely honest. As much as it disturbs me, as much as I feel awful about the whole thing, we have been watching this game back and forth. Meantime, Israelis get killed, they respond, Palestinians get killed. This hatred of Palestinians getting killed foments in a surprise attack where more Israelis get killed, and this has been going on for a half century. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. As I said last week, it's time to give war a chance. Giving peace a chance hasn't worked, mainly because Palestinians refuse to bargain in good faith for what they say they want, which is a homeland. Fine. Have a homeland. West Bank, nice property. There you go. Fine. But they keep saying no. And what we've seen out of the Gaza Strip, two completely different locations, two completely different governments, in fact. The Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, Hamas in the Gaza Strip. What we've seen is the government of the Gaza Strip doesn't want a homeland. They want to slaughter Jews because they're Jews. That's genocide. That's terrorism. You cannot negotiate with genocidal terrorists. You have to exterminate them. And the civilized nations of the world need to get out of Israel's way. Look, you don't want to take part? That's fine. You don't want to take part? Perfectly okay with me. But don't get in the way. Because if you stand for this, if you stand with Hamas, you stand for Holocaust. Genocidal Holocaust against Jews. And most of us will not ever tolerate that again. You're on the wrong side of this, and you need to stop being on the wrong side of it. Either stand quietly or help. It's completely up to you. This is the Wells Report. Back in a moment.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning-fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
This is the Wells Report in progress for Monday, the 23rd day of October, 2023. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, this, by the way, from Fox News, issued an open warning against Iran-backed terrorist group, the Iran-backed terrorist group, Hezbollah, which operates in Lebanon. The Israeli Prime Minister discouraged them from invading Israel as his country is widely expected to launch a ground offensive in the Gaza Strip. The expected ground invasion follows Hamas's brutal October 7th rampage into southern Israel. While visiting troops in northern Israel over the weekend, Netanyahu said if Hezbollah were to launch a war and invade Israel, it would make the mistake of its life. We will cripple it with a force it cannot even imagine. The consequences for it and the Lebanese state will be devastating. Hezbollah, which is armed with tens of thousands of rockets, has teased aggressions with Israel, even firing anti-tank missiles into northern Israel, targeting military outposts. By the way, a United States citizen fighting for Israel in northern Israel, was killed in that particular anti-tank attack. Israel has evacuated thousands of civilians near the northern border as a precaution. 1,400 people in Israel have been killed. The total mostly consists of civilians slain during the initial Hamas attack. At least 222 people have been captured and dragged back to Gaza, according to foreign counts and the Israeli Defense Force. Fears of a wider war have grown as Israeli warplanes strike targets in the occupied West Bank, Syria, and Lebanon in recent days. Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari said that Israeli forces had wiped out 8 militant cells in Lebanon over the past 24 hours and more than 20 since the start of the war, without elaborating. Hezbollah, which has a political arm and a militant one, is part of Lebanon's fractious government. Its fighters, however, operate outside the state's control. This essentially, Lebanon, this particular country, is a macro version of what we see in the West Bank. We see terrorist-based governance imposing its will on what would otherwise be civilized people. And what's happening is that the entire country is paralyzed by these terrorists. And so, Israel is making it very plain that if indeed the Hezbollah fighters that are currently massed on the southern border of Lebanon attack northern Israel, that Israel will respond harshly. Israel has the military capability to be able to take care of all of this. They do. And they're going to start calling some very serious shots on all this. I mean, sooner or later, I don't know exactly when, but sooner or later, Benjamin Netanyahu, Isaac Herzog, the president of Israel, one of these days, either or both of these men will say that the next attack on Israel from Hezbollah or Hamas or the Palestinian Authority or anybody else that are associated, that are well-known associates of Iran, any attack from those people will be an attack from Iran on Israel. It is just a matter of time before Israel makes that declaration. When that happens, the next terror attack from Hezbollah or Hamas will lead to people dying not just in the West Bank, not just in southern Lebanon, but in Iran itself. And then Iran has a decision to make. If indeed Iran decides to engage, Israel will stop them in ways none of us want to contemplate. But Netanyahu himself called Iran the world's first suicide country. Indeed, when you start looking at these terrorists running the West Bank, terrorists running Lebanon, for all intents and purposes, since Iran is the number one state sponsor of worldwide terrorism, you have terrorists running Iran. The people of these countries are given a stark choice. Your choice is to either sustain the government that you are a part of or reject it. I understand it's difficult. I imagine that if you are an Iranian citizen and you gather up your children and your wife and you head, or husband, and you head toward an Iranian airport, you're going to run across somebody asking you where you're going. And you're going to say, well, I'm going to go to France. I'm going to go to the United States. I'm going to go someplace else. Why are you going? Because I don't want to be here when Israel blots out the country. Do you think those people are going to be allowed to leave? These terrorists realize that these otherwise reasonable people are the people that are keeping them from being attacked already. And so you have to decide, and other people have to decide. You do your dead level best to not allow the war to touch the lives of people simply trying to escape an outrageously evil government. But you can't protect them all. And these are the realities. These are not what we would like to have happen or what we hope happens or any of these things. This is what we have. And we have to decide whether the lives of those people are more important than an Iranian-Israeli nuclear exchange. And that is the harsh truth imposed on us, not one that we try to foment or bring to ourselves. This is being imposed on us by corrosive, genocidal terrorists. More of the Wells Report coming up in just a couple of moments. Thanks very much for being a part of it. Back in a second.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
Hey, thanks for joining us this morning for the Wells Report, and make sure you share us with all your friends on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, Patreon, and don't forget to check out our Substack column, which will be coming up a little bit later on this afternoon. When you do all this, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you give us those thumbs up. They are really important. Check the notification box so you know when we're on the air, and whatever you do, join us every morning, Monday through Friday, 9 to 11 a.m. Central Time, for the Wells Report.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. Good morning, I'm John David Wells. Today is Monday, October 23rd, year of our Lord 2023. What do we do on this broadcast? We report the news honestly and fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We point out both. We make commentary, not news. That is commentary. It is not news. Commentary is opinion. Yours and mine, and so we debate. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. There is war, the clouds of which are gathering over the Middle East. There are a lot of actors involved in this war, and more by the day. I'm going to bring you up to date into all of that, and along with the official United States position. But first, let me tell you, the United States Marines are on the move. This from CNN. A U.S. Marine Rapid Response Force is headed to the waters off the coast of Israel. The Pentagon is preparing American troops for a potential deployment to the country, escalating the U.S.'s show of force in the region as it works to prevent the conflict between Israel and Hamas from widening into a regional conflict. Two defense officials familiar with the planning said the Rapid Response Force, consisting of 2,000 Marines and sailors, is being sent. It will join a growing number of U.S. warships and forces converging on Israel, as the U.S. seeks to send a message of deterrence to Iran and the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah. Sunday evening, U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin ordered that roughly 2,000 troops prepare for deployment to Israel to help with medical and logistics support. We happen to have a piece of video on that. This is Lloyd Austin discussing that very thing here on the Wells Report.
Well, Jonathan, as you know, recently we've seen rocket and UAV attacks against bases housing our troops in Iraq and Syria. We're concerned about potential escalation. In fact, what we're seeing is the prospect of a significant escalation of attacks on our troops and our people throughout the region. And because of that, we're going to do what's necessary to make sure that our troops are in the good position, they're protected, and that we have the ability to respond. Now, this additional deployment sends another message to those who would seek to widen this conflict. As President Biden said earlier, and as you've heard me say, if any group or any country is looking to widen this conflict and take advantage of this very unfortunate situation that we see. Our advice is don't. We maintain the right to defend ourselves, and we won't hesitate to take the appropriate action.
Well, in fact, we saw the USS Carney take down those 3 Houthi missiles. Houthis, again, that's an Iranian-backed group in Yemen, and also several drones. Was that takedown defending our ships in the region, or was it defending Israel?
Jonathan, when you have cruise missiles heading towards one of our DDGs, one of our destroyers, that vessel is going to do what it needs to do to protect itself. The same applies for the UAVs. And I applaud the work of the crew of the Carney. They demonstrated what our very capable United States Navy can do and will do if challenged.
And you've given them the authority to do that. That was done in an instant.
They have the inherent right for self-protection there, John. Yeah.
And could we see similar actions if we see Hezbollah or we see Iran start lobbing missiles towards Israel? I mean, are we effectively ready for air cover for the Israelis?
John, what we're focused on currently is making sure that we're providing the security assistance that Israel needs to defend itself. That's been our focus from the very beginning, and I will tell you that I am in contact with Minister Gallant nearly every day. I spoke to him on October 7th, the same day that the attack occurred. He identified to me what his needs were at that point in time, and we immediately started flowing security assistance to them.
That was this week on ABC, and that, of course, John Karl stepping in for George Stephanopoulos. There are other pieces of information, and this comes from the Secretary of State of the United States on the very same topic. Watch carefully. Check this out.
Overnight, the Pentagon announced it was actually increasing its force posture in the region. How concerned are you about Iran trying to escalate this war?
We are concerned. In fact, we expect that there's a likelihood of escalation by Iranian proxies directed against our forces, directed against our personnel. We are taking steps to make sure that we can effectively defend our people and respond decisively if we need to. This is not what we want, not what we're looking for. We don't want escalation. We don't want to see a second or third front develop. We don't want to see our forces or our personnel come under fire. But if that happens, we're ready for it.
Is the U.S. opposed to a preemptive strike by Israel, as has been discussed by some Israeli officials?
Israelis have been very clear with us, and we share this view. No one wants a second or third front, including when it comes to Lebanon, northern Israel, southern Lebanon. That's not in anyone's interest, and that's exactly why we've sent a very strong message to try to deter Hezbollah, deter Iran more directly from opening up a second front. You've heard the president speak to this very clearly. He has put countries and non-state actors on warning. Don't take advantage of this situation. We've also deployed very significant assets to the region, 2 aircraft carrier battle groups, not to provoke, but to deter, to make clear that if anyone tries to do anything, we're there. So my expectation is that, again, coming from us, coming from Israel, no one is looking for that second front.
That is the Secretary of State of the United States. And he also, by the way, in case you're wondering, spoke about something that has not been spoken about nearly enough, in my view, and that is the hostage situation in the Gaza Strip. There are Americans there. Why hasn't the American government made it abundantly plain that there are 2,000 Marines and sailors right off the coast of Israel that would be glad to go into the Gaza Strip and get our people and any other people that happen to be hanging around? Why hasn't somebody made that abundantly clear? Why hasn't somebody said, we're coming to get you unless you give us our hostages, and if you do, then you'll have to deal with the Israelis. But if you don't, you're going to have to deal with us. Does anybody actually believe that Hamas wants a fight with the United States Marines? The answer is no. But what we keep doing is we keep listening to these brave pronouncements like Hezbollah saying, gosh, your weapons that are arrayed against us, your battleships and your weapons and your fighters, they don't scare us. Meanwhile, you can see the dribble of various fluids from their bodies as they're talking to the camera bravely. Simple case of the matter is this. It's time to say, okay, you called down the thunder, here we are. And nobody's doing that. We keep traipsing around the edges of it. And dare I say, as I'm trying not to disrespect the Secretary of State, but here's another example of that from yesterday on Meet the Press.
First, Christian, we've been working on this from day one, engaged with different partners in the region, sending clear messages about the need to immediately and unconditionally release all of the hostages. And it was gratifying to see that Judith and Natalie Ronen were released yesterday. I had a chance to speak to them as well. They sounded strong of mind, strong of spirit, but there remain many others. And we're hopeful that more are released. But the bottom line is this: they need to be released, each and every one of them, now, unconditionally.
Do you take this word by Hamas that they are potentially prepared to release 2 more hostages seriously? Is the U.S. government, for example, working with Qatar to make that happen as we speak?
Well, acts are what speak, not words, particularly coming from Hamas. But we've been engaged, as I said, with partners. One of the first things that I did after the horrific attack of October 7th and hostages were taken, men, women, young children, elderly people, it's extraordinary, was to talk to everyone we could who might have influence with Hamas in terms of releasing them. In the instance of Judith and Natalie, I again want to thank the government of Qatar for playing a very important role in getting them out and now on their way home to see their loved ones.
I want to ask you about their release. Can you tell us why those 2 were released and why now, Mr. Secretary?
I can't. We don't know why Hamas chose to release Natalie and Judith first. And I use the word first advisedly because, again, we're hopeful that more follow. I can't speak to that. What I can speak to is our incessant efforts from day one to try to get people home, to try to get them out of Gaza, back with their families and loved ones. That is continuing as we speak. This is something we're engaged in virtually round the clock.
That is Secretary Blinken. Now, a lot of that, you're seeing him very carefully parse through those answers. And you also saw that with Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin when he was dealing with John Karl from ABC News. A lot of that is misinterpreted by the people of the United States, by the way it should be, as kind of like furtive. In other words, not answering directly. That's because the questions they're being asked are the wrong ones. You can't sit there and say, so is the United States preparing to invade the Gaza Strip? You can't say that. What you can say and what you can ask is you can say, what would be on the table with regards to perhaps a rescue mission by the United States Marines when it comes to those hostages? That gives them room to answer without looking like they're trying to hide facts. That is one of the problems with American journalism. These people really don't know what they're doing. They really don't understand the entire picture. But in order to understand the entire picture, they have to be given information to make that possible. The crafting of public information is something we do really well on this broadcast. Because there are things that are floating around that are out there that we're watching. We don't have confirmation of these things, and we're very careful to only bring you confirmed information. Are there other things out there? Yeah. Do I blurt them out? No. Why? Not time. Not confirmed. Is it a responsibility? Yes. Is there any reason for you to trust me with providing you with the information in a timely way that you can actually do something about? The only thing I can do is say, look into my eyes as I look into yours. I've been doing this since 9/11, 2001. And that's another thing that's missing out of American journalism. Whether you trust me or not, that's up to you. All I can tell you is that journalism used to be a business where people trusted the reporters because the reporters knew what they were doing. The crafting of a responsible and truthful and factual public information is something that has been swept aside for the sake of sensationalism and politics and all manner of other things not factual. You can't ask these people a question they can't answer, so ask them questions they can answer. You'll be amazed at the difference in journalism quality if they would simply do that. These guys are doing the best they can, I think. I do. I believe that once you get down to the point where the Biden administration officials are actually telling the truth, they do it pretty well. This is the Wells Report. Back with more in just a moment.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Telephone number 817-379-2172. Senator Ted Cruz is hitting the alarm button with regards to what he says are Iranian spies in the Biden administration. He said this on Fox News. Here is the interview that we're talking about.
We need to cut off the funding that has enabled this attack happen. And what is so infuriating is that over the last 2.5 years, Joe Biden and the Biden administration have flowed nearly $100 billion to Iran. Understand, Hamas is a proxy for Iran. Without Iran, there would be no Hamas.
That's
and the
right.
Wall Street Journal has reported that this attack was planned by Iran, was funded by Iran, was directed by Iran, and yet the Biden administration continues to allow billions and billions of dollars to flow to the Ayatollah to be used to murder Israelis and to murder Americans.
That is exactly right, Senator. And right now, we have Iranian sympathizers working within the Biden administration. And that is why I started asking you, what can you do about it? Because these atrocities are continuing. And we have Robert Malley, apparently Biden's chief negotiator in the Iran nuclear talks. We have others that are still working in the administration that have been leading this effort to get the United States back into an Iran deal, leading this effort to, in fact, lower the sanctions, enabling Iran to generate billions in revenue. And what are they doing with the money? They are empowering these terrorists.
Well, and what you just mentioned with Rob Malley remains one of the greatest national security scandals in our nation's history. So Rob Malley was Joe Biden's chief negotiator for Iran. He's an incredible Iran sympathizer. He is an advocate, a passionate advocate for the disastrous Obama-Iran nuclear deal. But he also has extraordinarily bad judgment. He's been fired. He's had his security clearances stripped, which I want you to pause and think, just how bad does his conduct have to be to have his security clearances pulled by this ideological and radical White House? But we now know also that, among other things, 3 of Rob Malley's top advisors, his inner circle, that he relied on, were Iranian operatives. They were recruited by the government of Iran. They were directed by the Iranian foreign minister. They reported to the Iranian foreign minister. We have their emails now in which they discuss. One of them discusses with the foreign minister that his loyalties are with the government of Iran, and he is there to do whatever they direct, including making the message from within the federal government that there's nothing wrong with Iran having a nuclear stockpile. You literally had 3 Iranian spies working in senior positions directly around the U.S. government. One of them, as far as we know, remains a chief of staff in the Department of Defense to this day with access to classified documents. And yet the corporate media cannot be brought to mention that 3 Iranian spies were brought into senior levels of government with access to classified materials while working directly for Iran, the same Iran that just murdered 31 Americans and 1,400 Israelis, the same Iran directed by an Ayatollah who regularly leads mobs chanting death to America and death to Israel.
You are listening and watching the Wells Report, listening to and watching. And that's Senator Ted Cruz. Do you have to take some of that with a grain of salt, or 2 or 10? Yes. But some of it you don't. It is clear, based on the actions of Iran, that they have confidence driven by other things than are apparent to us right now. In other words, those people act boldly. And what we can see doesn't justify that courage. So just exactly what's going on? What is Iran doing? Are they getting information from the insides of the Biden administration? Are they basing their decision-making on that? Ted Cruz thinks so. What do you think?
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost. How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning-fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
News, analysis, commentary, and debate. It's the Wells Report. John David Wells at your service. So the 2020 election was fraught with charges, countercharges, ideas that the election had been rigged, that there were voting machines that weren't necessarily properly registering the vote. There were games being played with ballots, ballot box stuffing, miscounting, etc. And what was fascinating to me at the time was that as soon as any of these things popped up, the mainstream media did everything it could to stomp them into conspiracy theory boxes and just loony comments by people that were sore losers. There were people that were trying to destroy democracy by saying that there was something wrong with the 2020 election. I did not take that tack. What I said is the election is the election. What do you think about it? When I brought up questions, anomalies, people said, you're just an election denier. I said, not at all. As a matter of fact, I really don't care about the 2020 election. The election I care about is the 2024 election. That's the one I'm concerned about. And apparently other people are too, specifically whoever might or might not be responsible for the anomalies that were never, ever investigated and never allowed to be investigated by people with motivations that make no sense. And now they are reaping the whirlwind of what they sowed in 2000 and with those decisions not to investigate it. It's in USA Today. Check this out. Ahead of another election cycle that's already shaping up to be contentious, federal and state election officials are in the midst of campaigns of their own to convince wary voters about the integrity of casting their ballots. No. They are recruiting poll workers, certifying voting machines, hosting lessons on how election systems work in community centers, classrooms, and libraries. I'm going to sneeze. There's nothing I can do about it. Sorry about that. The steps are needed, experts say, to restore voters' confidence in a system that, despite flaws and outspoken election deniers, was mostly trustworthy and secure in the first place. Not being an election denier, not casting aspersions on all of this. As a matter of fact, all I've ever done is ask questions. I have a question. Here's my question. So I've got two, actually. Experts say steps are needed to restore voters' confidence in the election system. Yes or no? Do you have confidence in the election system going into 2024? Yes or no, and why? Our telephone number is 817-379-2172. You can go to the chat room. This is just a simple question. Do you have confidence in your vote for the 2024 election? Yes or no, and why? That's all I'm asking. The more people that answer, by the way, the more accurate this becomes. Are we going to get the 1,000, 2,000 people necessary to have some kind of a vague idea of accuracy? No, this is just an anecdotal question. But what's happening is that the experts, whoever they are trying to say, well, we've got to convince these people that these ballots are being counted truthfully. Do you think they are or not? And why? 817-379-2172. This USA Today article continues. Election explaining efforts come as former President Donald Trump and others continue to falsely claim the 2020 election was stolen, but election officials have said many voters simply aren't familiar with the election process. Do you believe it's possible to generate confidence in the election system if that election system is based on voting machines nobody knows the function of. In other words, nobody still knows how Dominion voting machines work because Dominion refuses to share any of that information. So, does that give you confidence that your vote's going to be counted properly if you don't know how the voting machine works? Or does that matter to you? Once again, just asking questions. 817-379-2172. And by the way, I do have to point something out. You know, the reason that people don't have confidence in the voting or the election system is because they just don't know enough about it. You know, explaining how something is supposed to work without knowing actually how it works, the system is fine. But if you say, well, we take a computerized, artificially intelligent voting machine, and this is the results, and this is what we do with the results, you're forgetting what the voting machine is doing. Everybody said, well, they counted the votes over and over and over again. There was nothing wrong with those votes. Really? Well, there wouldn't be anything wrong with those votes because it was downstream of what may or may not have tainted those votes. All those counts are going to come out roughly the same because the crime happened before the count. Now, there were crimes that happened during the count. At least that's alleged by people without any kind of investigation because the court said, no, this is a technicality, you don't have that. And that's understandable because the court, the judicial branch of our government, is not going to jump into the politics of everything. They don't want to. I get it. But somebody needs to start asking some very, very hard questions, which could, by the way, mean that everything that USA Today and all the mainstream media says is absolutely true. It was the most secure, most accurate election in American history. But we don't know. And anybody asking questions like me, well, now, wait a minute, what about this and that and such and so? Well, you're just a conspiracy theorist. You're just an election denier. No, you are somebody that just didn't answer my question. I ask you a question. Is it, and here's the question I would ask, is it reasonable for people to believe the results from a voting machine that they are not allowed to know the function of? Is it reasonable for people to believe that this machine is not playing games with their votes? Yes or no? Nobody's answered that question, under oath or not. Because the first thing comes back is, well, you're just an election denier. No, I'm searching for answers. And I'm searching for answers from people that will not give them and instead cast aspersions on my integrity. And by the way, I'm not talking about 2020. I'm talking about 2024. You guys escaped scrutiny from 2020. There's no reason to believe that you're not confident that you can do it again. Now, that doesn't mean what you did in 2020 is perfectly fine. I just don't know. And I want to know one way or another because we can deal with truth. But we cannot deal with not truth. Well, then you're saying that they're lying. No, I'm not. I'm saying that I don't have those answers because they won't answer me. And yes, that does hit my skepticismometer and does kind of like edge it towards the red line. What else edges it toward the red line, John David? Well, I'll tell you that the same media that keeps calling me a conspiracy theorist or an election denier or anybody else that ever has a question and so on and so forth does so in exactly the same way. The language is identical. It's consistent. Right here in this article. The steps are needed to restore voters' confidence in a system that, despite flaws and outspoken election deniers, was mostly trustworthy and secure in the first place. Listen to that language, mostly trustworthy? This is the 21st century. What do you mean we have an election system that's mostly trustworthy? This is one of those anomalies that isn't explained. There are people that say that 44,000 votes may have altered the outcome of the entire election. Well, now wait a minute. President Biden won that election by 81 million votes to 74-something million votes. Right. But that's not how we elect presidents. We elect presidents through the Electoral College. The voters simply tell the Electoral College how to cast their ballots. It's because we don't want to have a direct political populist election that can be manipulated, and we've seen that happen. So, once again, where are the answers? I'm not anybody's enemy. I'm not calling them liars. I'm asking questions. Questions. And nobody wants to answer those questions. Doesn't that seem odd? It seems odd to me. These are simple questions. As a matter of fact, if you work for Dominion Voting Systems, call me on the telephone, 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. I will ask you the question. Actually, there are two. Actually, there are three. Question number one. Did your machines properly count every ballot that were cast with them? 2. Can your machines be accessed from the outside by hackers? 3. Will you release, under protection of copyright and patent law, how your system works? A no to any one of those is unacceptable. Now, that's just Dominion. What about Smartmatic? What about Diebold? What about all those? I want to ask those questions. This is not the only representative republic having trouble with these particular machines. France just did one with pencil and paper. 55 million votes. All with pencil and paper. No voting machines. You know why? Because the government said, we're going to have an honest election. And we don't know what these machines do, and no one will tell us. That's France. So, why don't I get the answers to those questions? But this article right here belies the nonstop din of people calling anybody who asks a question liars and conspiracy theorists. Let me give you some more of this. Election explaining efforts, come as former President Donald Trump and others continue to falsely claim. No, they are continuing to claim. It's not your choice to make them false or true. It's not a journalist's place. All you do is you say Donald Trump and others continue to claim the 2020 presidential election was stolen. You don't get to say falsely. That's not news. That makes that an editorial. I differentiate between the news and editorial that I throw out there, the commentary, the opinion. They don't. We've been looking at ways to demystify that, said Ben Hovland, vice chair of the bipartisan U.S. Election Assistance Commission, whose mission it is to help local officials run elections. That's a real challenge. So, Ben, let me ask you this question. So you're a part of the bipartisan U.S. Election Assistance Commission? Well, yes, I am. Were you elected to that office? No. How did you get that office? How did you get that job? Well, I was appointed. By who? I was appointed by Donald Trump. I was appointed by Joe Biden. I was appointed by Barack Obama. I was appointed by George W. Bush. I was appointed by a politician. You weren't elected. No. Oh. But yet, you're a part of the U.S. Election Assistance Commission, whose mission it is to help local officials run elections. How convenient. Now, I'm not calling you a liar, Ben. I'm just saying, hey, Ben, how'd you get your job? Election officials across the country competing with the outside influence of Trump, who faces felony charges for allegedly trying to overturn the 2020 election. Once again, that's slanted news. Yes, Trump is facing felony charges for trying to overturn the 2020 election. That's not what this story is about. The story is about trying to convince people that the elections are okay, but they can't, really. And why can't they? Because they won't answer questions. This is what we call a self-licking ice cream cone. Everything's fine. Well, I have a question. You're a liar. You're a conspiracy theorist. You're an election denier. No, I have a question. I'm a journalist. No, you're not. You're biased. Uh-huh. Self-licking ice cream cone. This is the Wells Report.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning-fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. And yes, the Republican Party is finally believing that they're making idiots out of themselves. This is a Marina Petovsky article in USA Today. Multiple Republican lawmakers lashed out at their own colleagues as the House remains frozen without a speaker, calling the situation embarrassing. A handful of hard-right Republicans, led by Matt Gaetz, ousted former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy earlier this month, and Republicans in the lower chamber have failed to coalesce around a replacement. Why have they failed to coalesce around a replacement? It's those dang Gaetz 8 people. The Gaetz 8. Okay, so other people showed up to be the Speaker of the House, and who's stopping that from happening? It's not the Gaetz 8. Who is it? Well, it's the same people that are gnashing their teeth in disgust about Matt Gaetz and his 8 friends. The worthless scumbags. Well, wait a minute. Other people have been put up there. How come you didn't vote for them? Oh, and by the way, are you now worthless scumbags because you don't want their candidates? You see, I used to be a Republican until I finally realized that the party is worthless. Completely worthless. Don't get me wrong. The people that are running for the speaker, I know many of them. Pete Sessions, I know many of these people. They're good people. But they're also stuck in a political quagmire that we refer to as the swamp. And we don't need the Republican Party to be part of the swamp. We need the Republican Party to be the antidote to the swamp, the draining of the swamp, if you will. And so the same people that are stomping all over Matt Gaetz and his buddies are now making it impossible to elect a speaker. Okay. House Democrats refused to vote to save McCarthy, have since refused to lend their support to Republican speaker candidates. Why would they? They're in the minority. Who cares? Jim Jordan, Steve Scalise, gone. McCarthy said on Sunday on Meet the Press, this is McCarthy speaking, the former speakers speaking, it's embarrassing for the Republican Party. Yeah, it sure is. It is embarrassing because you guys are worthless. Yeah. And you're proving you're worthless. And you need to pick somebody, and I don't care who, but you need to pick somebody that wants to get this Republican Party moving again. I would suggest someone with a backbone. And since the moderate Republicans don't want someone with a backbone, because, gosh, you know, they got this really cushy gig where the Democrats essentially drive American policy and we just call them names while we go ahead and help them pass their policy. That's called ulterior motivation. It's called lying. And the Republican Party is famous for saying the Democrats lie. It's what they do. They're just liars. Well, what about you? Well, we're certainly not liars. Really? Ulterior motivations aren't lies? What about just omitting things? Just not really dealing with them? Those are called lies of omission. Are they lies? You see, I happen to think they are. And then once I realized that was happening all the time, I just said, pass. Pass. Thanks. So McCarthy goes, you have to understand why we're here. 8 Republicans led by Gaetz have created this chaos. Okay, they created the chaos. I'll agree. Who's continuing the chaos? Is it Gaetz and his buddies? Nope. No. What Gaetz did is he opened the actual wound. He actually opened this mess that the Republican Party is in so that everybody could see it. And with every vote for not a speaker, the mess becomes more and more apparent. It is embarrassing. And the reason it's embarrassing is because nobody's stepping up to the plate and saying, okay, what does the Republican Party want to be when it grows up? Nobody's asking that question. What do you guys want to do? I'm a ball player. I'll play ball. But you've got to explain to me why being the handmaiden of the Democrat Party is a great place for the Republican Party. You've got to explain that to me. Who knows? Maybe you'll convince me. Bet you can't. In other words, what I'm saying is the Republican Party has to be a political party, a genuine, honest-to-God, no-kidding political party with honest-to-God, understandable goals and aspirations that they can put out in public and live behind and live with. And they don't. And they don't. By the way, in case you're wondering, Tom Emmert is the Republican from Minnesota. He's been integral to Republican priorities in the House, boosting security at the southern border. He sets himself head and shoulders above all that everybody else wants to run. But then again, McCarthy also was talking about the virtues of Jim Jordan the other day. Psst, idiotic. Okay. Mike McCall of Texas said, I have to say it's my 10th term in Congress. This is probably one of the most embarrassing things I've seen, because if we don't have a Speaker of the House, we can't govern. Every day that goes by, we've essentially shut down as a government. We have very important issues right now, war and peace. What about the budget? I want a Speaker in the chair so we can move forward and govern, said McCall. Well, get to frickin' work. You better sit those people down and you better say, look, do we want a political party or not? Because there's a guy in Texas that says, or not. I'm done with you guys. Until I can get the Conservative Party of the United States up, I'm just going to keep pointing out the stupidity. I'm John David Wells. Thanks for watching The Wells Report. See you tomorrow at 9 a.m. Okay, brothers and sisters, thanks very much for joining us. I sincerely appreciate it. Okay, God bless. And I'll see you again tomorrow morning.